The Williamsport Crosscutters 2024 Hot Stove Banquet was recently held at the Journey Hotel in downtown Williamsport in front of another sold-out crowd. The event raised over $12,000 for the Lycoming County United Way. One of our special guests at the event was ESPN's Tim Kurkjian. Kurkjian, making his fourth appearance at the banquet, discussed the Shohei Ohtani contract, his Hall of Fame ballot, a basketball conversation with Sandy Koufax, and much more. Enjoy our hot stove interview with ESPN Hall of Fame baseball analyst Tim Kurkjian. Yes, indeed. Year number 4, fourth time with us. Tim, you're a big part of this event for the last 4 times we've done it. We certainly appreciate you coming out once again.
Well, I love Williamsport, but let's be clear, when I cover this event every year, I'm here for 2 reasons, for scale and context, because most of the players are taller than I am, and they're 12 years old. Several years ago, I interviewed a kid named Terrence. He was 12. He was 5'10" and 185 pounds. So I asked him on live TV, Terrence, when was the last time you were my size? And he looked at me and he goes, the second grade. The second grade. So that's why I'm here, to give just a little scale and context to our kids.
Kent Tekulve with us tonight. What are your recollections of the '79 World Series?
Well, the Orioles were in the '79 World Series, and I'll never forget, we had a guy in our office at the Washington Star walking through the newsroom saying the Pirates are going to beat the Orioles, even though the Pirates were down 3-1. He took every bet there was, and I looked at him and I said, how in the world are you sure that the Pirates are going to win? And he said, well, they got Willie Stargell on the team, and they got that skinny reliever that nobody can hit. And that was Kent Tekulve, who pitched in 90 games or more in 4 different seasons. That simply can't happen today. We don't let our pitchers do that. But for Kent Tekulve to be that good in his prime, never forget it.
Texas Rangers win the World Series in 2023. I know Chris Carlin liked that. He's the only Texas Rangers fan I've ever met in my whole life. How surprised were you with that result?
I was not surprised. For about 3 months, the Rangers were the best team in the American League. And then they hit an incredibly bad stretch. They lost 9 in a row and 20 out of 30. And then Bruce Bochy, future Hall of Fame manager, pulled that team back together. I covered them in the first series against the Rays, and I said to myself, I wish I'd said it out loud, the Rangers are going to win the World Series. That there was something special going on there, and they ended up doing it. This is why baseball is so great, that a team you look at and go, boy, they weren't very good down the stretch. They barely made it. They ended up winning the World Series. It was a tremendous story. It's always a good story when a team that's never won wins the World Series.
Well, the biggest story of the offseason, of course, Shohei Ohtani. Where would he sign, for how much? We got our answers. The LA Dodgers and $700 million over 10 years. Give us your take and explain that complex, or kind of complex, contract to everybody.
Well, I'm not surprised that he went to the Dodgers. I kind of assumed that all along. They've been saving up their money for years. But $700 million was way beyond what anybody possibly thought. After he got hurt and he couldn't pitch for 2024, I figured he's going to get $450, maybe $500 million. Instead, he got $700 million. A baseball player is the highest paid player in any of the 4 major sports, which I think is great. And he is going to defer $680 million of that. So he's only going to make $2 million, only $2 million a year for the next 10 years. So the Dodgers are now in a position to keep adding, because all of his money is going to come at the end. And maybe it should. He's the most remarkable player we've ever seen. No one's ever seen a player who can run like this, throw like this, hit a ball like this, do everything like him. He's a once-in-a-lifetime player.
Lots of Phillies fans in the crowd tonight, I know. Your thoughts on the Phillies in 2024? Rhys Hoskins departs. They haven't really made any big moves, but what's your take?
They're really good. They're going back to the playoffs, but they're not done adding. I'm certain of that. Never forget that Dave Dombrowski, the general manager, is one of those guys who just kind of lies in the weeds, waiting for the perfect moment, and then out of nowhere, he comes and signs someone. You go, where did that come from? He is the master of that. But even if they don't sign anyone, they're good enough to make the playoffs. I don't think they're better at the moment than the Braves, but we've seen what they've done to the Braves the last couple years in the postseason. But I think the Phillies are going to add somebody else. I'm not sure who it's going to be. You know, Blake Snell, Cody Bellinger, somebody big. Wouldn't be surprised.
Hall of Fame vote by the writers comes out next week. You're a voter. You usually share your ballot with us. Who'd you vote for?
I voted for 8 guys this year, and I think 2 of them are going to get in. Adrian Beltre is going to get in on the first ballot, as he should. Only Brooks Robinson played more games at third base than Adrian Beltre, one of the best defensive players I've ever seen. And I hope I'm allowed to say this in mixed company. He never wore a cup at third base, a protective cup, which is just unbelievable to me that you could be that close to home plate and you never wore a cup. I said, how could you do that? Why didn't you wear a cup? And he looks at me and he goes, that's what these are for. He had great hands. He's getting in on the first ballot. I think Joe Mauer's got a real shot to get in on the first ballot. Go look at his numbers as a catcher, just absolutely stunning. And Todd Helton, who almost made it last year, I think he's going to make it this year. And maybe even Billy Wagner, who's 5'8", by the way, threw a baseball in the upper 90s. And by the way, he grew up as a right-handed kid. He broke his arm when he was 5 years old. He switched arms and then started throwing 95 miles an hour. He told me once growing up in rural Virginia that he learned how to throw left-handed by just throwing a baseball across the field, and then he'd go pick it up and he'd throw it back. And I said, Billy, you had a whole bag of balls. He goes, no, I only had one baseball. He would throw it, go pick it up, throw it 300 feet back. That's how he ended up being a great left-handed pitcher, having grown up right-handed.
Who else was on your ballot?
I had Gary Sheffield on the ballot, 500 homers. Not sure why he's not in yet. I don't think he's going to make it. I voted for Chase Utley, his first year on the ballot. That was not an easy decision, but when you look at all the intangibles of Chase Utley, he's a Hall of Famer for me. I vote for Andrew Jones. Other than Willie Mays, he's the greatest defensive center fielder that I've ever seen. So I think that covers my 8. I don't think I'm missing anyone else. It's really hard in the voting. I still don't vote for Alex Rodriguez or Manny Ramirez. I'm not sure if I'm right doing that, but they cheated at a time when we were really checking and really testing. So voting for the Hall is the greatest privilege I have. I've done it for 32 years, and it is the hardest exercise ever because the steroid issue just clouds everything.
We've got lots of questions from the audience, so I better get to some of those. This one comes from our friend Chris Carlin. Who does your favorite imitation of you? Lots of people imitate Tim. I wish I could because I would do it up here, but...
Well, let's be clear. All the imitations of me are really terrible because if that's what I really sound like, then I have to go get another job. The first guy who did it is still probably the best one, JP Arancibia, and I got completely ambushed on the air by this. I didn't know it was coming. It was so funny. It was so bad. It was so good. And finally, I asked him, I said, JP, please tell me that you do other impersonations. Tell me you do Jack Nicholson. And he goes, no, I can only do you. So when I went to Arizona that year, Ryan Dempster, really funny guy who can imitate anyone, did this thing on TV where it's having me interview Harry Carey, and he's doing my voice and Harry Carey's voice. So he has Harry Carey going, Tim, like, where do you come up with all those stats from? And then he does my stupid voice. And then Tim Dillard also did me while he was in Milwaukee. And while doing my voice, he crouched down so he could be the same height as me also. It was ridiculous how this worked out, but it was good fun, and we all had a bunch of laughs.
You can find most of those on YouTube. Let's do some quickies, Tim. In your opinion, the greatest era of baseball played?
Well, for me, it was the mid-'80s, and I'm sorry, that's just when I got started. I was about 25 years old or so, a little less than 30, let's say, and I really understood the game. I really loved the game, and I saw it in a different light. But that was when George Brett and Cal Ripken and Paul Molitor, and those guys were in their primes, Alan Trammell. That's when the game was really played at its best for me. The players today are bigger, stronger, faster, and better than ever. But the game was played better in the mid-'80s, and that's the era I'll never forget.
How about the rule changes in baseball last year? Thoughts on them, and have you gotten any feedback from players and coaches?
Yeah, the rule changes really worked for the most part. The pitch clock worked astonishingly well. We cut out 30 minutes of dead time from every game. I never thought it would work that well. The players deserve an enormous amount of credit for being able to adjust so quickly. So I think the rule changes are great. I think the rule on, banning the shift was a good idea, but I'm sorry, I will never get used to, a ghost runner at second base in a tie game in the 10th inning. That's just not the way the game is played.
I love this one. Do you play Immaculate Grid, or are you banned for knowing too much?
I played Immaculate Grid one time. Gosh, I hope I say this properly. Look, there's a no-win situation for me playing the Immaculate Grid because I have nothing else going on in my life that I'm any good at other than these ridiculous baseball statistics. So I have to get them all right. If I get one wrong, I'm exaggerating only slightly. I'd probably kill myself if I got one wrong because I'm supposed to get them right because this is all I know about in the whole world. So someday I'll decide I'm going to do this, not take myself too seriously. It's a great game. I've chosen not to play it because it's too much work for me.
If you don't know what it is, check it out online. It would take us too long to explain. You and I are both big fans of baseball board games. Here's a good one. How did Stratomatic, a baseball board game, improve your insight and understanding of baseball?
Well, it did. If you don't know Stratomatic, great tabletop baseball game. I played that and APBA religiously when I was a kid. I found all sorts of people in my business did the same thing. John Miller, Hall of Fame broadcaster, he called me once and I'd left my notebook in the press box, and I went up to his room at midnight in Minneapolis. This is 30 years ago. And after calling a major league game, he's up there playing Stratomatic in his room. That's how seductive that game was. I loved it. It's helped me understand the game. And I was telling Chris earlier, Keith Hernandez, great first baseman, best defensive first baseman of all time, played Stratomatic all the time. And when he got drafted by the Cardinals, he's going to play pro baseball. And he packs his Stratomatic with him. And his dad said, Keith, you can't take that with you. You're a professional baseball player. And Keith said, but Dad, I'm halfway through the 1970 season. Wonderful game, helped me in every way, including today.
All right. Everything I've ever known about baseball, I learned from baseball cards, Tim. Nobody tells better stories than Tim Kurkjian. Always ready with a story or anecdote about any player, no matter who you mention. So, I've got like a dozen baseball cards here in front of you, face down. Pick one, give us a story about that person.
All right, well, first off, Aaron Boone of the Yankees does this to me all the time. He'll send me a baseball card, and he'll say, in which stadium was this picture taken?
Right.
And I can't see any of them. It's like looking at a sonogram for me. And he can tell where everyone is taken. It's unbelievable the skill that he has on that. He grew up in a ballpark. Amazing. Okay, this is Sparky Anderson. Sparky Anderson was the first manager to win the World Series in both leagues. Sparky is one of my favorite people of all time. And he was a very simple man, and I mean that as the greatest compliment. And he told me once, he said, I don't understand the English language at all. He goes, why do we have three theirs? There's there, and there's there, and there's there. They're all the same. Why do we have three of them? Why do we have three twos? There's T-O, T-O-O, and T-W-O. He says, we should just have 1, 2 instead of 3. He was the greatest. And one day in his office, He did an impersonation of Leslie Nielsen in The Naked Gun when Leslie Nielsen was the hilarious umpire doing the backwards like call, strike 3. Sparky Anderson did that for us while he was on his way to being a Hall of Fame manager.
One more. Pick one.
All right. Sandy Koufax. Maybe you've heard of him. All right. So this is very self-serving. So when I went into the Hall of Fame 2 years ago, on a Saturday, I make my speech. On Sunday, we're going to the real induction where the real players are going in. And I'm on a bus with all Hall of Famers and me. It's like, who doesn't belong on this bus? I'm the last guy on, except for one other man. He comes up to me. There's one seat left, a very regal, elegant-looking man, and he says, "Can I sit next to you?" And it was Sandy Koufax. And I went, oh my gosh. Now, I had interviewed him before, and Sandy's one of the great people ever, but he can be a little prickly if you ask the wrong question. So now I'm sitting next to him for 15 minutes, and I got to ask the right question to get him talking. He was a great basketball player at the University of Cincinnati. So instead of asking him, hey, tell me about your great curveball, or why did you retire so early? I said, could you dunk it easily when you were at the University of Cincinnati? And his eyes light up and he goes, look how big my hands are. He has historically large hands. And he goes, and look how long my arms are. I have a 37-inch sleeve. So he said, even though I was 6 feet tall, he said I could jump, I got these giant hands, and I got these really long arms. So for 15 minutes on the way from the hotel to the induction ceremony, I talked to Sandy Koufax exclusively about basketball. It was unforgettable for me.
These are the best. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Someday, we're going to have a hot stove banquet with just Tim Kurkjian, and we're going to do 2 hours with Tim and talk baseball. Tim, thanks for making time to join us again this year. You are number one. Tim Kurkjian.
Thank you. Thank you.